and welcome to another episode of This Week in Clean Tech. It's a roundup of the week's biggest stories you need to know in climate and clean energy in 15 minutes or less. Today is Friday, November 1st, 2024. I'm Renewable Energy World Editor-in-Chief John Engel. Shannon Osaka from the Washington Post will be back on the show very shortly, but for now I'm joined by Cleantech PR veteran Mike Casey of TigerCom. Mike, we're recording this on Halloween. I can only imagine what your costume is going to be tonight.
So here's the true story. Brian Mendez and I were plotting unsuccessfully to surprise you on this episode because we're going to have a GIF of your best friend Elon Musk jumping up and down. So for Halloween, I'm just going to I'm going to do my Elon Musk impersonation right now here, like that, right? So I just went as Elon Musk. That's my Halloween costume.
For our audio only listeners are going through something right now, having to listen to you grunt while they drive in their morning or afternoon commute.
See, there's a reason why I'm wildly more popular with our listeners than you. You are this curmudgeon on the small players in clean tech, like Log. You are harsh on them. I talk them up. You only reserve your affection for Elon Musk, and I
don't know where you're getting this energy. I appreciate it, but it's welcomed. But we're going into fall. Winter's going to be here soon. I need you to dial it back a little bit. All right, we want to thank our listeners who have shared those reviews of Mike Casey's brilliant performances on the show and contributed story ideas and nominations for Cleantech of the Week. Send those to rew@clarionevents.com. Hey, a little Clarion Events news. Our parent company acquired Infocast in the last week. So those clean energy events you know and love are now coming into our umbrella. So we're really excited about that. All right, Mike, you get us started.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a sign that the Engel empire continues to expand.
I had a buddy conversation. That's what we do when we onboard people. And one of the nice ladies that I spoke to said she's a listener of Factor This. She didn't say This Week in Clean Tech, though. So.
All right. Well, then I'm going to one up you. Jeff Risley was just on the phone with me today, and he said he's a devoted listener. And I said, good, we're going to give you a shout out when we tape. So there you go. All right.
Cool.
Story one. Maxine Joslow from the Washington Post. U.S. approves massive lithium mine in Nevada, overriding protest. John, I just want you to know, I pronounced Nevada correctly. Don't do Nevada. It's Nevada.
Buddy, I grew up out west. I'm the one correcting you East Coast elite on this. Okay, let's get into it. The Biden administration approved a large lithium and boron mine in Nevada last Thursday. Some environmentalists protested the mine, fearing it could push an endangered wildflower found only in the lithium and boron-rich soils of Esmeralda County, Nevada, to extinction. But the mine is expected to be a major supply for carbon-cutting electric vehicles, producing enough lithium for about 370,000 EVs each year over 2 decades. The Biden admin needed to consider 2 environmental priorities with this decision. 1, the need to accelerate the energy transition, and 2, the need to combat the global biodiversity crisis. In response to the protests, the company behind the project pledged to protect 719 acres of critical wildflower habitat to balance conservation with clean energy goals. Mike, I feel like we've seen this movie before. Your thoughts?
We have. So despite our vastly expanding need for lithium, the U.S. only produces 2% of the world's supply. So mines like this are going to play a vital role in securing the domestic supply. If you're concerned about energy security, you need more mines like this, which will employ up to 500 construction workers and 350 people in its ongoing operations. This is, however, a desert ecosystem, and wildflowers are critical at the bottom of the food chain, which is why the Center for Biological Diversity plans to challenge this permit in court. I get where they're coming from. There's no getting around the environmental costs of mining, but there's also no getting around the civilization-threatening climate disruption crisis, which is what we are all trying to solve for. John, story number 2.
Yeah, this one's from The Atlantic, titled "Cheap Solar Panels Are Changing the World." Mike.
All right, a new report from energy think tank Ember. The global solar capacity is set to grow by 29% this year, meeting all global electricity demand if it needs to. Last year, solar made up for more than half of new power generation in the U.S. It used to be that you needed government or utilities to support solar installation. Now the economics drive it. So check this out. 40% of solar's global growth comes from people powering their own homes and businesses. In South Africa, solar capacity grew 10 times from 2019 to Q1 23, growing to 5.7 gigawatts. It's really because it beats the cost of diesel generators, making it the preferred backup for businesses in countries with unstable grids. And businesses account for 80% of all the small scale solar capacity in South Africa. John?
Yeah, we've seen that story in Puerto Rico as well, and solar just keeps beating expectations. Solar costs have continuously declined over the last few decades, making it one of the cheapest power sources in the world. On the other hand, the world's fossil fuel use has plateaued, and the solar boom could knock fossil fuels off the plateau by the end of the decade. I think some of that will be determined in just a few days when we have a pretty consequential election. The solar boom relies on the growth of energy storage to tackle the intermittency challenge in transmission capacity to efficiently deliver electricity from solar farms to consumers. A diverse clean energy mix that includes geothermal, hydro, and nuclear could also tackle the intermittency challenge. And unfortunately, none of these are keeping up with solar's growth right now. These barriers really make it tough to unlock the full potential of cheap solar panels. And then the trade issues, which we don't dive into with this piece, but are certainly out there. Mike, our third story.
Trade? What are you talking about,
Yeah,
John?
we don't have time. We've got like 6 minutes to get to Shannon Osaka, and we're no way we're going to get there if we get into 201 tariffs.
All right. Third story, Maeve Alsop from Latitude Media. She is a This Week in Cleantech veteran mentionee. A new solar storage project is powering Amazon data centers. It took 7 years to get online. John?
Yeah, can I say that I think I'm actually going to be leading the Maeve Alsop fan club. I think she's one of the best out there right now that's reporting on our industry and putting out some incredible journalism. So 7 years ago, clean energy developer AES filed a request for interconnection in California with CAISO. This summer, the 150 megawatt solar, 75 megawatt hour storage project finally came online to power Amazon's data centers. The long timelines, partially because of California's decision to protect climate-threatened trees while accommodating renewable and housing development. This Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act made permitting more challenging, similar to our first story this week. Mike, your thoughts?
My thought is, my friend, we got to talk. Look, when Shannon Osaka from the Washington Post is going to be our guest, we got to talk, dude. Like, you can't praise Latitude Media's reporter while Shannon Osaka's on deck.
She has to have something to work towards. Now she'll be on for a third time going, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know that I framed that right. She's sitting in our lobby like, I'm out of here.
I think she's like, I don't need you as a career counselor, John Engel. That's what
true. Truthfully, no one does. All right, talk about some Joshua trees.
They're incredible, and it's worthwhile to make a plan to protect them. But can we not figure out how such a plan should look in less than half a decade? Texas just surpassed California in solar power generation, in large part because there aren't as many barriers and hurdles to jump over in order to build things. California might struggle to reach its goal of reaching net zero by 2045 if it doesn't streamline some of this development. I will also add, call me guilty of a gratuitous shin kick here, but the gutting of net metering during the Newsom administration has not helped the state's progress toward net zero. John, our fourth story.
Your struggle to keep it on the rails in this episode, you're I don't know you've got the giggles. You're just kind of unhinged today, man.
Hey, that's a loaded word this season. Unhinged is a loaded word.
Is it? It should be loaded. I felt like it was pretty pointed too. All right, fourth story.
Next thing you know, you're going to call me a floating patch of garbage, John.
I would never do that, Mike. I love you too much. All right, fourth story. Tim McDonald from Semaphore titled, Why Wall Street is Ready to Bet Big on Sustainable Aviation Fuel. Mike, your thoughts? And by the way, I love Puerto Rico. It's one of my favorite places to visit.
All right. I'm going to protect Shannon Osaka's sense of self by cutting you off from praising Tim McDonald because you love to do that as well.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good. I like Tim a lot.
Maybe Shannon can get up to Semaphore's level someday, right?
No, we're not doing this to Shannon anymore. All right. SAFs, come on.
All right. Aviation, it accounts for 3% of global carbon pollution, and it's hard to decarbonize. So I'm gonna channel my friend John Engel and just say I really think we should put our pollution reduction efforts on bigger sources of pollution because I think sustainable aviation fuel is a lot like campus politics. Never have so many fought so hard for so long over so little. However, most of the airlines have moved away from the carbon offsets that they initially preferred because of the concerns of their effectiveness. And passenger jets are really heavy. They're large. It's difficult to run them on battery power. So the only practical path to net zero in aviation is by changing the fuels. It took years of negotiation and planning to raise money for SAF factories, but given the urgency among airlines to secure them, demand is now high, so it's the perfect time to attract investment. John?
Welcome, technological pessimist. I know I like the movement with SAFs. I think all the airlines are behind it. There's some predictability in that market in ways that green hydrogen doesn't have that luxury. So keep going, but let's get to Shannon Osaka. I think you covered that well, Mike. Story number 5. Oh, she is still here. What a relief.
Shannon,
I would say, Mike, I would say you have the Friday like sillies, but we record on Thursday afternoon. So I truly don't know what's gotten into you.
Ms. Osaka, I just want you to know my co-host is doing his feverish best to recover from his social ingratitude. I think you're the best reporter we've ever had on the show. Just going to say that right now.
I just want to say I will join the Maeve Tim
great.
McDonald fan club. I am right there with you.
Right.
So
you're getting a little, the PR guy is showing through here. I know you got to pitch Shannon too, but like, let's keep it real on the show, man.
Shannon, do not suck up to this guy. He's a paper tiger. I'm just telling you. All right.
That's true. All
right.
All right.
So, the Post did this amazing feature story about where the IRA benefits are playing out. This is a seriously badass piece of reporting. So, it's also quite rich. So I doubt that somebody has gone into the depths here. But Shannon, summarize it for us so we can encourage people to really check out this resource, because I think it's more a resource than just a story.
yeah, so we reported a few different things. The first thing has been reported before, which is that most of the investment money is flowing into Republican districts. It's about 75% Republican-leaning districts, about 25% Democratic-leaning districts. But then we went a little deeper and we looked at where are the places where the investments are really booming? What regions are getting the most attention? We found that, for example, the South is getting 40% of all the clean investment money so far, which is disproportionate to its population, which is very interesting. And then we also looked at what are the technologies that are surging? What are the technologies that are kind of lagging behind since the IRA has passed? Solar's doing great. EVs are doing great. Wind power has fallen. Investment has fallen by about half since the 2 years before the IRA. We've seen a lot of headlines there, but this is kind of putting some hard numbers on that.
Shannon, I think we talked to you even last time about how some of these policies are resonating in communities that didn't vote for the current president and may not vote for Kamala Harris. Any like evolving thought on that? And we've talked really over the last 2 years about President Biden was then kind of the first president to have a national campaign with the foundation of climate and clean energy. Obviously, he's no longer in the race, but how do we think this is playing out?
I think it's really interesting. We will find out sometime next week. It might be far past Tuesday. But I think that, the Democratic establishment had this theory that if we can locate these factories, manufacturing centers, clean energy investments in swing states, in these areas that have fallen a bit behind of economic progress, that they might get those votes. I think that what we have seen so far from polling in terms of, do people know that Biden has done this? Do they know that these investments are going in their areas? There isn't a lot of evidence that the average voter understands this. And if you look at someplace like Georgia, for example, where there's been huge EV investments, there's been huge battery investments, most people are connecting it to the work of the governor. They're not necessarily connecting it to the federal government, to Congress. So I think we'll see. It could be kind of a rude awakening for the Democratic establishment that this is not really giving them the votes that they were hoping for.
Mike, I have another thought on that too, because I think that neither party really gets to take credit for where the factory is actually going, in my opinion, because I think the factory developers, operators are choosing land that is cheap. They're choosing power that is cheap, often dirty, and they're going to environments that have limited permitting frameworks. Where is that? That's in the South. I'm just making a statement there, but that's my feeling of, kind of why it's gone in that direction versus, the political advantages that could follow downstream.
I think that's a huge part of it. And if you look at where the cheap land is. I mean, some of these factories are enormous. I mean, we're talking about huge, huge battery factories. They need a lot of cheap land that is in Republican-led districts. I think that the push that the Biden administration did that came through the IRA was, trying to get investments to go in fossil fuel communities or economically disadvantaged communities, and you can get like an adder onto your tax credit in that situation. However, there has been some pushback from certain green groups saying these are really broad definitions that you're giving. I mean, if you look at some of the maps, it's like a lot of the U.S. is covered by one of these designations. So that might not be pushing things as hard as we might think.
John, we're just about out of time. We need to go to our Cleantecher of the Week.
Yeah, this week's Cleantecher of the Week is Colin Hughes from Rebel, who shared a bike share experience in Rotterdam, Netherlands, with e-assist cargo bikes. He shared that the company, you're going to have to help me here, Mike, BAQME. Is that, do we pronounce that as an acronym or as a word?
I'm just going to let you struggle on your own angle. I'm not helping you out at all.
You guys put this stuff in here, and I won't read it before we go on. But anyway, Colin,
I generate all my lines spontaneously, John.
Whatever,
I don't know what
dude.
you're talking about.
All right, so Colin's getting a half-read Cleantecher of the Week this way. I'm just kidding. He shared that company, however you say it, had at least one bike within a 5-minute walk and that the cost was usually under $5 a trip. So, Colin, thanks for sharing your experience with the show. And, Mike, you know what? We reached 16 or 17 minutes. That's about all I can handle with you.
Well, I was just in Amsterdam seeing these bikes. My wife and I were there for our 25th anniversary, and I got to say,
congratulations!
Thank you. It's a super
God
cool
bless
system.
her. That sweet, patient woman. All right, thanks, Shannon. Thank everyone else that does this.
Shannon, you can always come back for career counseling, marriage counseling, and self-esteem building from John Engel. You can always come back. All right.
I can't wait.
We want to thank our producer Brian Mendez and Alex Peterson and Claire Quirin. And I will see you next week, John.
No, you won't.
No,
you won't. Shannon, I would invite you to be my new co-host for this thing. Yeah, we do it once a week. We record on Thursday afternoon. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye now.